Hi, I'm Odellyn Marin. I found out my sister was having dinner with my fiancé, so I reserved the table right next to theirs. My own blood stole my dress, my dreams, even my future, pretending it was just chemistry. They erased me, quietly looted my life for months, and smiled while I sat in the dark. Will you stay silent or watch me reclaim every stolen piece? Before we dive in, let us know, what time are you listening to this and where are you? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. It was one of those quiet evenings where everything seemed too calm for its own good. Cassian was in the shower, humming to himself like nothing in the world could touch us. I was curled up on the couch in our living room in Austin, sorting through sample color palettes for a client presentation. The kind of night that should have ended in tea and sleep. But then, his phone lit up. Just a ping. A harmless chime I'd heard 1,000 times. I didn't mean to look, I swear I didn't. But the screen was facing me, and curiosity, no, something deeper, made me glance. Arya, Friday, private booth, she'll love it. I blinked. The message preview was from my sister Valora. My stomach clenched. My first thought was, that must be a mistake. But it wasn't. The sender ID was clear and the tone too familiar. Private booth? At Arya? That wasn't a place you went with coworkers or for casual dinners. It was where Cassian took me on our first anniversary. I sat frozen for a beat. Then my hand moved on its own, reaching for his phone like it belonged to me. I hesitated. I wasn't someone who snooped, but something about that message. It wasn't curiosity. It was instinct. The passcode? Still our anniversary. I wanted to laugh. The screen unlocked and I stepped into a different universe. Their thread wasn't just messages. It was a slow, unraveling betrayal. They had dinner reservations, inside jokes, references to things that had happened when I thought Cassian was working late or out of town for a conference. And then, the photo. Valora, wearing the dress. My dress. The one I had carefully chosen for our engagement shoot. The one I let her borrow last month because she had a charity event and nothing decent to wear. The same dress she'd smirked at before, teasing, "It's cute. Kind of modest for me, though." There she was, posing in that same dress, one shoulder slightly off, a hand on her hip like she owned it, or maybe like she'd just claimed something more than fabric. I stared at the image for what felt like hours. I wasn't just looking at infidelity, I was looking at erasure. My sister had taken something sacred and made it hers. My fiancé, my dress, my place. I didn't cry. I didn't throw his phone across the room. I didn't scream. I placed the phone exactly where I found it. Then I walked, slow and steady, to the kitchen. Poured a glass of water with hands that should have been shaking. They weren't. It's strange how betrayal doesn't hit like lightning. It seeps in like cold. Once the water touched my lips, I picked up my own phone and texted Elias. "You awake?" He replied in less than a minute. "For you? Always." Elias, my best friend, my ex, the only person who'd ever seen all the Valora damage and called it what it was. "I need to make a dinner reservation," I said as soon as he picked up. I kept my voice steady, clinical. "Arya, Friday night." There was a pause. Then, "Next to them?" "Yes." The maitre d' was surprisingly accommodating. I didn't need to beg or lie, just said I wanted a private dinner, possibly near another party for work reasons. He promised discretion. Once that was done, I stood still in the center of the kitchen. The quiet buzz of the fridge, the faint water from the shower upstairs, it all made my head feel hollow. Like none of this could be happening. But it was. I turned off the kitchen light, walked back to the hallway. Cassian was still in the shower. Instead of going to bed, I slipped into my home office, sat at the old wooden desk I inherited from Dad, opened the navy leather diary I hadn't touched since the new year, and on a fresh page I wrote one sentence in thick black ink, then underlined it 3 times. Let's see what it feels like to sit next to betrayal and not flinch. I closed the diary, and this time my hands did shake, just a little. Let's see what it feels like to sit next to betrayal and not flinch. That line had lived in my head for the past 3 days. I repeated it while brushing my teeth, whispered it while driving to work, Rewrote it again and again in my journal like a mantra I didn't believe yet, but needed to. Friday came fast. Too fast. By 6:30 I was already at Aria. I had never seen the place so dimly lit, so hushed, like it knew something tense was about to unfold. The maitre d' greeted me with the kind of look you reserve for regulars who tip well and bring drama. He nodded discreetly and gestured toward the corner. "As requested, Miss Marin. Table 12. Your guest has arrived." Guest? I turned and saw Elias already seated. Navy blazer, white shirt, no tie, calm as ever. "You didn't think I'd let you face this alone, did you?" he said, rising with a soft smile. He held out his hand. I took it. His grip was warm, firm, and just long enough that if someone were watching, which they soon would be, it might look like we were something more. He pulled out my chair like we were on a first date. I sat in silence, smoothing the fabric of my dress. A fitted black sheath. Nothing flashy, just strong. The kind of thing Valora wouldn't be caught dead in. My wine was already waiting. Crisp, dry white. I sipped it slowly, letting the cool bite settle me. Elias leaned in. "You sure you want to be here for this?" "I've been sure since the second she wore my dress," I replied. At 7:12, Cassian walked in. He scanned the room like he was expecting someone familiar but trying not to look obvious. Hair styled just the way I used to run my fingers through it. That same slight hunch in his shoulders when he was nervous. I watched it all from 10 feet away. Then, Valora followed. And just like always, she made an entrance. Hair swept up, confident strides, a smile like she'd never hurt a soul in her life. She was wearing my nude stilettos, the Louboutins I had lent her for a client dinner 6 months ago. They were never returned. Just like so many pieces of me she'd casually borrowed, then claimed. She laughed at something Cassian said. They slid into the booth, on the same side. Close, like a couple who'd already rehearsed this moment. "God," Elias muttered under his breath. "They look rehearsed." I didn't answer. I was too busy memorizing every inch of their body language, hers draped toward him, his hand hovering near her thigh. I swirled my wine, then stood. Elias didn't stop me. I took the long route past the booth, pretending to head to the restroom. As I returned, I made eye contact. Valora spotted me first. She froze. Her smile collapsed in real time. Cassian turned next. His jaw actually dropped. I stopped beside their booth, calm as ever. My voice didn't even waver. "Valora," I said smoothly, "I believe you remember Elias." Elias stood behind me like a silent monolith, nodding politely. He didn't smile, didn't need to. Valora's mouth opened, then shut again. Cassian looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. "And you?" I turned to him. "I believe for God I see everything." Cassian blinked. "Odellin, what is this?" "You tell me," I said, tilting my head. "I'm just here for dinner, like you." They didn't move, didn't say a word. It was Valora who looked down first, like the tiled floor could save her. I turned toward the maitre d', who had been watching from a polite distance. "Would it be possible to push these 2 tables together?" I asked, my voice syrup smooth. "It's time for a conversation." The maitre d' gave a quiet nod and moved the tables together without asking a single question. Just the clink of silverware and the faint shuffle of linen as our corners merged. Elias slid in beside me again. Cassian sat stiffly across, Valora next to him with her arms locked tightly in her lap. For a long moment, no one spoke. The table wasn't just silent, it was suffocating. Cassian tried first. Of course he did. "It's not what you think," he began, voice shaking. I was going to talk to you, Odellin, I swear. We never meant for—" "Don't," I interrupted softly. "Just don't rewrite the timeline for my comfort." Valora let out a slow breath, crossed one leg over the other. "This isn't about betrayal," she said. "This is about a connection we couldn't ignore. It just happened." "A connection?" I tilted my head. "Is that what you call forwarding him the restaurant reservation I made for our anniversary?" Cassian shifted in his seat. Valora's jaw twitched. Elias remained quiet, but the subtle movement of his thumb brushing my knuckles beneath the table was all the grounding I needed. "You didn't fall in love," I said, looking them both dead in the eye. "You rehearsed this lie in my absence." Valora snorted. Come on, Odellin, he was never truly yours. You played house, sure, but you were always halfway out the door. I could have taken the bait, but I didn't. Instead, I leaned back, calm as if we were chatting over Sunday brunch. And you've always mistaken stealing for winning. Funny how that pattern keeps showing up. Her smile cracked. You've always made things dramatic, even when we were teens. Remember the art contest? You acted like losing that photo spot was a war crime. My breath caught. I remembered. I remembered because I didn't lose. I had won first place. Regional. My photo had hung on the family mantle for exactly 1 week. Then Dad replaced it with Valora's homecoming queen picture. He said it was more representative of the family. I was 16, and that week I wrote in my diary, I guess I'm the background, she's the headline. Valora never knew I saw that swap, or that I cried about it in the garage for 2 hours with the radio turned up so no one would hear me. I didn't respond, not then. Just pushed back my chair and said to the maitre d', We're done here, thank you. He nodded. Elias stood. The table didn't argue. The ride back to my apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums like static in your bones. Elias walked me to my door, then left with nothing more than a long look and a quiet, text me if you need. I stood inside, shoes off, still dressed from dinner. Couldn't sleep. So I sat on the couch, phone in hand, and started scrolling. Valora had posted a new photo set at a vineyard. Cashin's hand on her lower back. Valora in a dress nearly identical to the one I had planned for my own shoot. The captions, even the quote under the main photo. My quote. The one I'd emailed Cashin last month when I was planning our engagement session. Love doesn't need to be loud to be forever. I stared at the screen, heart pounding like I'd run a mile, breath short, cold sweat beating along my spine. They didn't just take him. They took my story. My life's outline, photos, words, style, claimed as theirs. My phone buzzed. Elias. Still awake? I typed back. They didn't just take him. They took my story. I put the phone down, went to my bookshelf and pulled the old journal, leather-bound, barely holding together. The one I hadn't opened in over a decade. I flipped past the pages. Birthday doodles, old crush rants, family holidays I pretended to enjoy. Then I found it. 15 years ago. The page was yellowed, but the ink still crisp. If I ever disappear from my own life, I hope someone notices. I ran my fingers across the sentence. I whispered, I notice now. I notice now. And once you start noticing, you can't go back to pretending. The next morning, I didn't open my laptop, didn't check emails, didn't even feed the plants like I usually do. I just sat there with my coffee going cold, staring at nothing, until my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in months. May Whitmore. We met in law school, drifted when life pulled in opposite directions. I knew she and Valora had become close again lately. Weekly book clubs, Pilates, wine nights. I hadn't thought much of it until now. May, text. Hey, I know this is awkward. Can we talk? Just us? She picked a cafe on East 6th. Quiet, local, the kind of place that served espresso in real ceramic cups and played acoustic covers of 90s hits. When I walked in, she was already there, both hands wrapped around her mug like it might help her speak faster. Thanks for coming, she said. I nodded, sliding into the seat across from her. What's going on, May? She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. I thought you knew. I didn't want to get in the middle, but you didn't deserve this. She tapped open a thread of texts. Valora's name sat bold at the top. Her messages? Cruel. Valora. She clings like a puppy. Cashin can't breathe. Valora. You should see how he lights up when he's with me. It's like she kept him in a cage. May's eyes brimmed with guilt as she handed me the phone. They've been seeing each other for almost a year. I didn't flinch. I didn't ask for more. I just handed the phone back, jaw tight, and said, Thanks for being honest. That's more than I've gotten from most people. Later that afternoon, I drove to my mother's house. If only to prove to myself I could stand there and not break. The house still smelled like lemon cleaner and nostalgia. A little too clean, a little too hollow. She opened the door, surprised. Odellin, everything okay? I just wanted to talk, I said. keeping my voice even. About Valora, about Cassian. Her brow furrowed and she led me to the kitchen. Tea was already brewing. I know it's not easy, she said after a pause, but Cassian, well, he always seemed more alive around Valora. Maybe it's not betrayal. Maybe it's just chemistry. I blinked. Chemistry, I repeated, as if trying the word out. So that's the bar now. Before she could respond, footsteps came down the stairs. Valora, wearing one of my old college sweatshirts, book in hand. Oh, she said casually, didn't know you were coming by. I stared at the cover of the book, the one I'd kept under my bed for years. A gift from Dad before he got sick. She dog-eared it. You're living here? I asked. Just until the wedding, she replied, not even blinking. Mom said it's fine. I looked back at our mother. She didn't deny it. I stood slowly. I'll let you both get back to your bonding. But at the front hallway I turned. Valora was trailing behind me, probably to gloat. I stopped, turned to face her. You may have fooled them, I said quietly. You may even believe what you're doing is love, but you're building it on ashes. Her lip curled. You're just bitter. Let it go. You never made him happy. There it was, the gut punch. Still, I didn't waver. Enjoy him, I said, voice like ice. But if you try to erase me again, I'll make sure everyone sees who did the burning. She rolled her eyes and slammed the door behind me. And there, on the hallway table, the last little insult, was a framed photo. One I'd taken years ago on our family trip to Sedona, my shot. My watermark had been cropped out. Beneath it, a gold plaque read, "Captured by Valora." I took out my phone and snapped the picture. She snaps a picture of it with her phone. I didn't even remember walking out of the house. The next thing I knew, I was in my car, the engine running but the keys still in my lap. The framed photo was burned into my vision. One I took, one I edited, one I cherished. And now, repurposed like everything else they've taken. 3 days passed. I worked, but not really. I went through the motions, keeping my replies short and my voice steady, but inside something was moving, shifting, settling. Then came the message. Mom, can you come by Saturday? Just to talk, calmly. The word calmly gave her away. Something was planned. Saturday afternoon, I drove up the familiar driveway, the gravel crunching like it always had. A subtle ache rose in my chest. How many holidays, birthdays, late-night tears had this house held for me? Now, I wasn't sure it held anything. Inside, I found them already arranged. Mom on the sofa's edge like a mediator, Dad across from her, hands folded. Cassian sat stiffly near the armrest, and Valora, perfect posture, legs crossed, smiling like she belonged there more than I ever had. Thank you for coming, Mom said, as if this were a negotiation. I took the only empty seat and waited. We just want to move forward with peace, she continued. There's no sense in dragging this tension. The engagement party is 2 weeks away. Can we agree not to create any scenes? My jaw tensed. By scenes? Do you mean telling the truth? Dad, who rarely spoke unless it was about the weather or car maintenance, looked up. There's no reason to dig up more than what's already done. Cassian cleared his throat, but said nothing. And then Valora, glowing like always, chimed in. We just want to celebrate, start fresh. The deposit's taken care of, the honeymoon's locked in, it's finally all squared away. Her voice dripped with ease, like the world had folded itself neatly around her. Something clicked. The deposit. The honeymoon. 2 years ago, she called me crying. It's an emergency, Odie. I need a medical procedure and can't tell Mom. I'll pay you back, I swear. I wired her $18,000. No paperwork, just trust. I never saw a bill, never saw a scar, just a new apartment and a growing Pinterest board labeled "Forever with him." And now I knew. That money didn't go to any hospital. It bought her the vineyard venue, the honeymoon suite, my silence. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. My whole body went cold, like my skin knew before my mouth could form it. Valora reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope, white and embossed. Here, she said sweetly. Your invitation. I still want you there. I took it, stared at the gold lettering. Our family's name printed on the front like nothing was wrong. Then I handed it back. I won't be attending the celebration of theft. Mom's breath caught. Don't do this, Odellin. She's your sister. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And I was your daughter first. I stood and walked out before anyone could stop me. No yelling, no last words, just the weight of 1,000 unsaid things pressing between my shoulder blades. Outside, the sky had turned overcast. I reached my car, leaned against the door, and let the air fill my lungs. Then I unlocked my phone and typed the one message I'd been circling for days. To Elias. It's time. Can we talk Monday? Legal? By the time Elias opened his office door Monday morning, I was already sitting in the lobby, holding a folder I hadn't dared look inside for days. He didn't say, "Good morning," or "You look tired." He simply nodded, stepped aside, and said, "Come in." The room smelled faintly of leather and old coffee, comforting in a strange way. It reminded me of when we used to study for the bar exam together, back before titles and betrayal. I set the folder down on his desk and said quietly, "I want you to see this. I think they used my name." He didn't flinch, just opened the folder and began reading. Inside were screenshots of the wire transfer to Valora, $18,000 labeled only as personal, and copies of Cashin's old business proposal he once asked me to review. At the time, he told me he was just brainstorming. Now I realized it had been a blueprint. Elias didn't speak for several minutes. He pulled out a slim, locked drawer and removed a printed set of LLC documents. "This is Valora's startup, right?" I nodded. "Take a look at line 14, he said, pushing the form toward me. "Initial angel investor, registered as OM through Cashin's shell management firm. That's you. It was your transfer. They masked it through his name." My breath caught in my throat. I looked closer, and there it was. A signature I'd used once, years ago, on a lease agreement. They'd lifted it, reused it. I whispered, "They used me to start her business, then deleted me when she didn't need me anymore." Elias leaned back in his chair. "You can sue. You'd win. But if you do it now, they'll paint you as bitter, jealous. You'll look like a jilted ex with money. If you wait, you can catch them off balance." He was right, again. We spent the next hour crafting a strategy. No lawsuits yet, just friction. We prepared paperwork to flag any future investments tied to that business name. Then he helped me file a formal notice of contribution, just enough to appear in public records, but not enough to trigger headlines. Yet. By mid-afternoon, I walked out with a folder under one arm and clarity under the other. That evening, just before sunset, I stopped by Valora's boutique. The windows gleamed. So did her name, gold script etched on the glass like it had always been hers. I walked in holding a scarf she'd lent me back in college. Her assistant looked up, eyes wide. "Oh, hi, did you see the email?" "What email?" "The system froze. Our Stripe account's on hold. Some legal flag tied to an investor's name. Yours." Before I could respond, Valora emerged from the back. Her smile faded the moment she saw me. She looked like she'd seen something she didn't know could bleed. I handed her the scarf. "Figured you might want this back." She opened her mouth, but no words came. I stepped closer, just enough that only she could hear me. Funny thing about erasing people. Sometimes their names reappear in bold. And then I left. No scene, no drama. Just the silence of a woman who finally knew her worth. At home, I kicked off my shoes, poured a glass of water, and opened my laptop. That's when the anonymous message came in. No name, no profile, just a plain DM, just a heads up. They're planning to go public first, discredit you before you go legal. The DM sat open on my screen for a full minute before I moved. No name, no profile picture, just a sentence that hit like a match to dry leaves. They're planning to go public first, discredit you before you go legal. I didn't respond. I didn't even breathe for a second. I just closed the laptop, stood up, and walked to my closet. The dress I chose wasn't flashy. It was calculated. Deep navy, structured shoulders, clean neckline. I wore my hair up, makeup subtle. There would be no distractions tonight, just truth. Friday night traffic in Austin buzzed outside, the city pretending it didn't know the storm brewing in one of its upscale hotel ballrooms. I arrived early, uninvited, but confident. No one stopped me at the entrance. Funny how people assume you belong when you look like you do. Inside, the air was thick with perfume, ambition, and curated smiles. The kind of networking gala where people say authenticity and mean angle. I took a glass of sparkling water from a passing tray and let my eyes adjust. And there she was, Valora, on stage under warm spotlight, her voice clear and rehearsed. And so I started from scratch. No shortcuts, just vision, hard work, and the right people who believed in me. Applause. Cue dramatic pause. She placed her hand to her chest as a slideshow flashed behind her. Childhood photos, images from her boutique, and finally the words, Valora Marin, self-made founder, story of resilience. I moved through the crowd like smoke. Behind the polite chatter, I caught fragments. Cassian said his ex spiraled after the breakup. Apparently she's making trouble for them now. Such a shame, really. Some people can't move on. And there it was. Cassian, just off stage, leaning in toward a PR rep with a concerned expression painted perfectly for sympathy. She's fragile, I heard him say, low and breathy. We didn't want to say anything before, but she's making things up. We've only ever wished her peace. I could have screamed. I could have grabbed a mic and torn their lies in half, but I didn't. Instead, I walked quietly toward the front as the MC wrapped up Valora's segment. And now, before we close out, a special acknowledgement to past contributors who've helped elevate women in leadership, starting with Odell Marin. I stepped up, a few polite claps, a few confused glances. I took the mic, smiled faintly, and held up my phone. I believe stories matter, I said, especially the ones where someone gets written out and then writes back in. I tapped the screen. Cassian's voice echoed across the ballroom speakers. We didn't want to say anything before, but she's unstable. We kept quiet out of love. Murmurs, chairs shifted, glasses paused midair. Then I tapped again. Founding document of Marin & Company, I said. Filed January 3rd, 2022. Initial investor, Odell Marin. I held up the notarized printout for all to see. And the original marketing deck, I continued. All built from a vision they now call theirs alone. Valora had frozen halfway down the steps toward the mic. I turned to her. I'm not here to humiliate you, I said, voice even. I'm here to correct the record. Then I handed the mic to the MC, stepped down from the stage, and walked out. Behind me, the room burst into noise, gasps, whispers, camera flashes. But I didn't look back. I closed the door behind them, not slamming it, not even pressing it shut, just letting the silence swallow their exit. For a moment I stood there, one hand still on the doorknob. My apartment had never felt so clean, so empty of pretense. I exhaled and turned toward my phone. That clip from the gala? It had exploded. By morning, it was everywhere. Someone had caught the whole thing on video. My speech, the contract, Valora's face, even the moment I walked away with nothing but my name reclaiming itself. Twitter lit up with hashtags like Real Founder, Silent No More, and my personal favorite, turns out the quiet sister built the house they tried to evict her from. Even my inbox wasn't safe. Journalists, old colleagues, distant relatives. A stranger had emailed, I never liked Valora. Thank you for reminding the world that loud doesn't mean right. But then came Elias's call. The audit triggered. Stripe flagged Valora's LLC and, the big fund? They're pulling out until ownership gets clarified. I sat down slowly on the edge of my couch, not out of shock, but relief. Not victory yet, but breathing room. Then came the message I never expected. A forwarded voice recording. No name, just a subject line. You should hear this. I clicked play. Cassian's voice, unmistakable and casual. She won't fight back. Odellin? She doesn't have it in her. We'll just shift everything over slowly. By the time she notices, it'll be ours. There was a pause, then Valora's laugh. She always wanted things to be fair. That's her flaw. The file cut out. My hands shook, but not from pain, from clarity. The forwarded address, Valora's boutique. I checked the metadata. The file was logged under her assistant's folder. 3 hours later, a quiet email came in. She made us erase you from everything. I'm sorry, I couldn't keep doing it. R. I didn't write back. I just stared out the window for a while, watching the shadows shift across my building. Some betrayals cut deep, but some liberate. That evening, they came. Cassian knocked first. Valora stood behind him. No makeup, no sharpness left in her face, just panic. I didn't invite them in. I let them speak. "Oh, Dylan, we can undo this. If you call off the legal claim, we'll make things right, publicly. Just tell them it was a miscommunication." He looked at me the way people look at ATM screens, expecting a transaction. Valora's voice cracked. "I didn't mean to ruin you. I didn't know it would go this far." I nodded slowly. "You didn't ruin me." I paused. Let the weight of the silence settle. "You freed me." They didn't have words for that. Valora turned as they left. "I don't even know who you are anymore." I smiled, genuinely this time. Maybe that's the problem. You never did. Link to next chapter. Maybe that's the problem. You never did. Maybe that's the problem. You never did. Valora's voice had barely faded when I closed the door. The air in my apartment held the weight of everything left unsaid. But for once, I didn't need it lighter. I needed it honest. It had been a month since the gala. A month since the crowd fell silent, and the version of me they tried to erase took the microphone instead. In that time, silence had changed hands. Valora's brand lost 3 sponsorships within the first week. Cassian quietly stepped down from the firm he'd helped co-found. Their coordinated smear unraveled with the leak of that old recording, his voice confessing they planned it all. Not a misunderstanding, a transition. The assistant who sent it to me never asked for credit. She just wrote, "She made us erase your name. I couldn't anymore." That was enough. Apology emails trickled in from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some said they were shocked. Others claimed they never fully believed Valora's version. I didn't respond. Closure, I learned, is something you stop chasing when you start healing. My mother never called. And that hurt. Not because I expected an apology, but because some part of me still thought she might try to understand. She didn't, and maybe never would. But I didn't write this chapter for her. One quiet Friday evening, I was invited to a community art gala at the new downtown cultural center. It wasn't extravagant, just warmth, local artists, small lights strung across a polished patio. I wasn't even sure why I went until I got there. Near the buffet table, tucked between modest floral arrangements and a table of scholarship brochures, I saw it. A napkin folded into the shape of a leaf. The same shape from the table where Cassian first took me to dinner. The same design Valora once mocked. "Too precious," she'd said. But tonight, it wasn't a joke. It was a nod, a signature. Elias stood a few feet away, arms crossed, quiet as ever. When our eyes met, he smiled slightly. "Told them it was your thing," he said, and took a sip of something amber. They'd named a scholarship that night after my father, for those who build behind the scenes. I hadn't known until the host read it aloud. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. Later, when the crowd thinned and the sky darkened over the Colorado River, Elias and I walked along the water's edge. He asked, "Do you feel better now?" I shook my head. "Not better, just clearer." It wasn't revenge that moved through me anymore. It was something quieter, sharper. A clean line between who I used to be and who I refused to be again. "They wrote me out," I told him. "But I didn't disappear. I just picked up the pen." We didn't say much after that. We didn't need to. Back home that night, I framed a photo from the gala. One a friend had snapped while I was on stage. Mid-sentence, back straight, no hesitation in my eyes. It wasn't about looking powerful. It was about looking like myself again. In my journal, I wrote, "This wasn't the ending they wrote for me, but it's the one I chose. And that makes all the difference." Sometimes, the people who silence you the loudest are the ones who fear your voice the most. And sometimes,